Welcome to Life Extension Live. Great to see everybody. I'm Dr. Michael Smith, and I'm here with Dr. Crystal Gossert. How's it going, Dr. Crystal?
It's going well, Dr. Mike.
So, did you memorize the script that we're going to follow today? Because today is all about brain health.
I know. Well, I think just kind of reading up on it was enough brain exercise for me.
Yeah. So we're going to cover today everything about brain health, how to maintain healthy cognition and memory. Some cognitive decline is normal, but not inevitable. So we want to talk about how to stop your brain from shrinking, nutrients to increase blood flow in the brain. That's a key one. The best form of magnesium and the best diet for the aging brain. Boy, that's a lot to cover today. So this is going to be awesome. Listen, I'm in that age group, Dr. Crystal. I'm in the age group. The brain starts getting a little brain freezes and stuff,
Well, it starts much younger, actually, in like your 30s. You can start seeing some changes in the brain. And so, yes, it's one of those things that people they're concerned about their heart. I feel like there's not as much focus on just overall aging brain, more so like brain diseases.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, but just age-related cognitive decline. People aren't really concerned about that.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's talk a little bit about what changes in the brain as we get older. I know there's a few points you wanted to make, and I think Robson has a nice little slide. So run us through some of these changes.
Right. And we're going to really unpack these four main changes that you find in the aging brain. This is from the National Institute on Aging. There's shrinkage in the brain. So certain parts of the brain starts to shrink. You start losing blood flow to the brain and in the brain. You have poor communication between the neurons in your brain. And then the fourth main thing that changes in the brain is just inflammation. And this is inflammation in the brain is a hot topic because it's related to gut health. So we're going to kind of go through these four changes and talk about what causes those changes and what are some of the solutions.
Let's get right into it. Let's talk about the shrinking brain. What is that? Is my brain really shrinking? Like, what's going on? Tell us how are we defining shrinking brain? What does that really mean? And what's the ultimate effect?
Right. Well, what's happening is that you're losing neurons in the brain. I first started looking at this. I think we did a live a long time ago, probably over a year ago, about sleep. And we did, a podcast on sleep. And we started seeing that there was research on, poor sleep, and it caused your brain to shrink. And
I don't remember that. So this is a great topic for me today.
Mike.
I don't remember.
but we do know the overall size starts to shrink in your 30s.
Whoa.
And then you actually see the rate of that shrinkage starting to increase more once you reach age 60. And so what we see here on the left with the graphic is a healthy brain anatomy and some of the hallmarks of brain shrinkage or brain atrophy.
Yeah. As when I was training in radiology, Dr. Crystal, you could look at CAT scans or even MRIs of people's brains and looking at brain volume, and you could predict what age group that person was in.
Wow.
Just by looking at the brain and measuring the difference to the standard, which I think was like a 25-year-old or something like that. Yeah. So it does happen.
Fascinating.
It does. And then to see how that shrinkage can actually accelerate with certain conditions like, say, dementias.
Right.
And then you could see somebody following a basic pattern of shrinkage, and then all of a sudden it's like, because they really got hit hard by, say, dementia like Alzheimer's. So brain shrinkage is really interesting, and it does happen, and you can see the visible effects in radiology.
Wow.
I know.
Yes. Well, if I don't get a good night's rest, I feel like I can feel my brain shrinking.
Like something happens, something shrinking in there. It's like try to pop it open.
Exactly.
Blow
But
some air
there are
into it.
many causes. Cardiovascular disease, excess homocysteine. In the research, I'm seeing that all over the place as being a cause of brain
That's
shrinkage.
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and we know that homocysteine damages blood vessels.
Yeah.
So maybe you're having some issues there where you're
Something
just not
there.
getting enough
Yeah.
blood flow to the brain. But, diabetes, we know that Alzheimer's is now known as type 3 diabetes.
Right.
And
That's one of the theories. That's right. Yeah.
exactly. So that wreaks havoc on the brain. And just general nutritional deficiencies. You're not giving the brain core nutrients.
And and the shrinkage begins. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And so you can imagine if things like diet can impact brain volume, which can have an impact later in life on cognition and memory. If we're already eating a pretty poor diet, overfed and overfed and under nutrient, you can imagine the ultimate effect down the line, when you're in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? Because people eat those poor diets for decades.
Right. And, when you think about the brain shrinkage, this relates to it's more than just memory. You
Yeah.
look at mood disorders, depression, anxiety, all of that can be a consequence of the brain shrinking, depending on the
Yeah.
different areas of the brain where you're having that shrinkage.
Yeah.
And you're right, Dr. Mike, it's a lot of it is totally preventable. And I think that's the point,
Yeah.
is
Overfed and undernourished. That's the
yes.
phrase. I was trying to remember. Okay, say I need help, Dr. Chris. I need help. My brain is shrinking as we
Okay,
speak.
so here's the first solution. You're probably already taking it, omega-3 fatty acids.
Of course. Absolutely. Every
You know,
day.
yes, 30 to 50% of the brain membranes are those long chain fatty acids. So the fish oils are essential. I mean, you're
Yeah,
seeing them
for
now
sure.
even in your
Absolutely.
prenatal vitamins. You need to start early with those omega-3 fats.
But I know you don't think I take enough every day.
You probably don't.
You, we
So do you take at least 4 grams?
No, we already had this conversation. See, you need some help too. We've already had this conversation. I take 2 a day. So that for me, it's about 2,000.
No.
And I'm happy, and I'm going to stay there.
Well,
I
Dr.
don't
Mike,
know.
we need your brain in tip-top shape so that we can continue to do our lives.
I kind of like the shrinking brain. It feels good. No, I'm just kidding.
So, okay, how about this? Are you taking a B complex?
Yes.
What about B12?
It's in the B complex. And I get some B12 out of the multi I take. So I take a multi and a complex.
Well, one study found, and I'm going to read this verbatim, a 517 greater rate of brain volume loss in people with lower vitamin B12 than those with higher B12. So that was enough to convince me I needed to add more B12.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, it's an association, and that's fine. It's where we begin to learn things at that level where we make a connection. And so obviously with that kind of information, it's bump up your B12. It's not going to hurt, and make sure you're doing 4,000 milligrams of omega-3s every day to keep Dr. Crystal happy during the live show.
Yeah. And make sure, since we're going to be specific, make sure the B12 is methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin. Make sure you have both.
Combination. Okay. All right. Let's go on. So that's a shrinking brain. Good diet, omegas, B12. Check those nutrients out. The second thing that we saw in that slide that Robson put up was reduced communication, right, between brain cells, basically, what we call the highways or the synapses, right? Those
Right.
connections. And I think, the audience needs to understand that, if this is a brain cell and this is a brain cell, my fingers are those connections. This is thinking. This is memory. This is cognition, how those brain cells connect together. And the more of those connections you have, Dr. Crystal, tell me if I'm wrong, the better off your brain's going to be.
Absolutely. And what they need, definitely they need omega-3s, because omega-3s actually helps brain cell here get over to this one.
Get over there.
But they don't actually touch either. So they communicate through chemicals, neurotransmitters. We know that if you don't have sufficient amounts of certain neurotransmitters like dopamine and several of them, you are going to have memory concerns.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
How important is magnesium here? Or are we going to talk about magnesium a little bit later when it comes to those communication highways?
well, magnesium helps you to make more of those highways, more of those
Pretty
connections.
important.
Pretty important.
Pretty important.
But unfortunately, what 60 to 70% of people are not getting enough magnesium. And so, if you want to keep a strong, healthy brain, you have to zero in on
Now,
magnesium.
do you want to talk about the right form, the brain form of magnesium now, or do you want to save that for later? What do you want to do?
No, we can talk about it now. Magnesium L-threonate. This is the form that is able to readily get into the brain, cross the blood-brain barrier. Compared to other forms of magnesium, there's some research here. I mean, we see research in mice that's showing the growth of new brain cells, and there's some human studies. We wanted to highlight this one, Dr. Mike. 50 to 70-year-old individuals they all had some level of brain impairment, cognitive impairment, and they were given magnesium L-threonate. And on average, we saw improvement in overall cognitive ability. And we do have some results, Robson, if you can show those results, because one of the stats showed that the magnesium L-threonate improved brain age by 9 years.
Whoa.
Thinking, whoa, if I can get 9 years
That's
back.
great. Jeez, that's awesome. Yeah. But look at some of the other things there. So we have there's your brain age by 9 years, but 20% increase in the speed and tests of executive function. That's like problem solving, stuff like that. 13% improvement in working memory. That's a big one. I know a lot of people, Dr. Crystal, when you get in your 50s and your 60s, it's that working memory that bugs people a lot. Yes. When you can't remember where you put things and, where's your keys and your cell phone. And that's usually how it starts for a lot of people. And then you have almost a 40% improvement of episodic memory, which is like new faces and names, putting those together. So and it's with the special form of magnesium, but at the end of the day, it's a mineral, right? This is nothing fancy. Right.
Nothing fancy. It's magnesium. I mean, I guess magnesium L-threonate could be considered fancy. But that's after taking it for 12 weeks, and to see those type of results, I think are just outstanding.
Yeah. And that's an important distinction then for us to make. So before, when we were talking about the shrinking brain and vitamin B12, right? There's that association that was found between low vitamin B12 and a shrinking brain, right? But in this case, with the magnesium threonate, here you had people who truly had some issues, and they were looking at the improvement of those issues with the test material, which was magnesium threonate. So that's a test or a study you can put more confidence in with the results.
Yes. Yeah. Direct intervention. You're not concerned about, association and everything like that. I mean, this is a direct intervention that is helping.
Yeah, that's great. Magnesium threonate. If you haven't heard that before, Dr. Crystal, I would have to say Life Extension has written extensively about it in the magazines. You can probably just go to lifeextension.com and search for magnesium 3 and 8 and learn a lot more about it.
Yes.
So check that out. Let's now move to blood flow for the brain, right? So that's the shrinking brain. We need better communication. But what about blood flow? This is a big one for a lot of people who are getting older.
Right. Well, if you're not getting adequate blood flow, you're not getting nutrients to the brain, you're not getting oxygen in the brain. So, of course, brain tissue can die. You would see a connection between decreased blood flow and the shrinking brain.
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
what's neat or interesting about the decreased blood flow is it relates to heart health.
Makes sense.
Atherosclerosis, right?
Makes
If
sense,
you are
right?
having atherosclerotic, if your arteries are clogged, then you're not getting blood flow all over the
Yeah, yeah.
body.
If you have an issue with with an artery in your heart, you probably have some issues with arteries in your legs, in your arms, in your eyes, in your brain, right? It's kind of
Exactly.
all over the place.
Right. So, you can see that connection. So if you do have heart issues, if you know that if you've had stents or these other procedures, hopefully you're thinking better, but you need to use the same strategies basically that you would incorporate for cardiovascular support also helps the brain, such as exercise.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think what they've shown really is exercise of any kind. Right,
Yes.
like people getting in these debates about okay, I need to exercise more for a better heart or exercise more for a better brain, what have you, and then they start, okay, is it resistance? Is it, do I need to do free weights? Do I need to
Right.
buy a nice jogging gear and start jogging around but what we're showing over and over again, it's really just about being physically active for a certain
Exactly.
amount of time every day, and if you can do that, that's beneficial.
Yes, and that includes yard work. That includes housework.
It's
It's
tough stuff. That's, I get tired vacuuming. It's hard.
Dr. Mike.
No, I tell you what, though, we live in South Florida. I'm not sure where everybody else is from who's watching right now or who may watch later in the week. But yard work in South Florida in August, September, you're working hard. It's
Yes,
hot. You're working hard. Yeah.
I can agree. And it only takes, 10 minutes out there and you're thinking, what was
Oof.
I thinking coming out
I'm,
here? Number
Well,
one.
that's why it takes 2 weeks to cut my grass. I can only do a little part at a time. So let's talk. I wanted to mention, obviously eating healthy is so important to all this. We already talked about that standard American diet, overfed, undernourished, and how that can impact brain shrinkage, for instance. But I mean, if you're going to eat better, I think you're going to improve on all of these parameters that we're talking about. But when it comes to blood flow in the brain, you made a specific point about berries.
Yes, the dark berries. Those berries or just the dark fruit contain anthocyanins. It's a type of polyphenol antioxidant that's really supportive with just the structure of the blood vessels, helps to strengthen those blood vessels and improve blood flow. So I always think about even the dark cherries, the blackberries, the blueberries, those
Blueberries
really
for sure.
dark
Yeah.
colored berries.
Yeah. And it's such a shame, as we come, out of summer into fall, we start to come out of berry season a little bit, right? And they're not quite as good as they were a couple months ago. So I always get sad because I love fruit. You know that I eat fruit a lot. You would probably tell me I eat too much fruit, not enough vegetables. That's fine, whatever. But I get a little sad because the berries just quite aren't what they were just a month ago. So going into the fall, I start to miss all of those deep, dark, rich berries that we had mentioned. Dr. Crystal, there's something else you talked about before, and that's coffee. Why is that important here?
It's important because I love coffee. And so
And you
many
had to just
people
fit
do.
it in.
So any study that shows that coffee is beneficial, oh my goodness. So coffee has beneficial polyphenol antioxidants as well. But there is a study, 145 healthy elderly participants, moderate to heavy coffee drinking was linked to a reduction in cognitive decline, as well
Pretty good.
as better preserved brain white matter. That's that the brain tissue with that that can have those really quick, speedy neuronal transmissions,
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
and increase blood flow.
What
That's
what what's
that's the
what,
main point.
what's the when okay, so you said moderate to heavy coffee drinking. Do you remember what that was in the study so people have
I
an
don't, but
idea?
this stat actually came from the life extensions age related cognitive decline protocol. So, Brittany, if you can post that protocol, we do have a section in the protocol all about coffee, and there are more details there.
Awesome. Yeah. So coffee is really important. Funny thing, little side note about coffee, it does have antioxidant in it. And it turns out that's where most Americans get their antioxidants is coffee drinking. We're not eating enough of the berries we're drinking, but we get it from the coffee because we love our coffee, right? I mean, it's kind of funny. I know.
Coffee.
So number 4. So that's brain shrinkage, right?
Yes.
Then we went into better brain cell communications, right? That's that
Hmm.
magnesium threonate. Definitely check that out. And then blood flow, lots of berries, coffee, any type of exercise.
Hmm.
And now this last one is a big one because if you're doing all the right stuff, those first 3, but you still have some lingering inflammation in your brain, this is not good. And it's going to make it an uphill battle, isn't it?
So much so, Dr. Mike. And so this is we're many people are chronically inflamed, and it kind of stems back to that standard American diet. But neural inflammation degrades the blood-brain barrier. So now you're having more toxins, and just that natural barrier system where pathogens and toxins are kept out of the brain. Now they're getting into the brain. And I
Yeah.
actually just saw something today in the news, and there's the new term leaky brain. People talk about leaky gut.
I don't think I've heard leaky brain yet. That's a new one for me.
Yes, so leaky brain is this new
It doesn't
uh
sound good.
does it,
I
Dr.
don't
Mike,
want
right?
leaky brain.
Who wants that? But it's really the brain inflammation that is compromising the blood brain barrier, and what researchers are seeing that it links back to gut health.
Yeah, now that's a connection we've talked about a lot. You and I firmly believe in that connection between a healthy gut and a healthy cerebral vascular system.
Mhm.
And there's a variety of theories of why that are. Have we learned anything new? Like why is that connection there? I think the latest, it's really related to how the healthy bacteria in your gut metabolize food sources, but they metabolize it in a way where you're making beneficial compounds that can help the brain and really have whole body health, right? Is that kind of
Absolutely.
where I think that's where we think most of this benefit is coming from?
Well, that's what we're seeing. There's the new concept and new definitions of what we call those are postbiotics, and it's kind of the products made from those good bugs metabolizing the fiber, even metabolizing the polyphenols from your vegetables and the fruit that we talked about, and all of those antioxidants. They are helping to feed the gut microbes, and it's supporting overall health.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more we learn about the importance of gut health and how it influences really pretty much everything we do, it confirms something that you and I have been saying for years and years and years. You're only as healthy as your gut.
Very true.
I think that more and more we learn, that seems to be confirmed over and over again. So this is now, there's another, there's a diet out there. Now, we've talked about this diet before on, I think it was a live show.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
And Brittany's doing our tech support and on Facebook, and she's going to post that live.
Yeah, the Mind Diet,
the Mind Diet.
the Mind Diet. Give us a quick rundown of what that means. Like, what am I eating if I'm following the Mind Diet?
Well, it's very similar to the Mediterranean diet, but the key focus with the Mind Diet is the consumption of berries, particularly blueberries.
Oh, there they are. The berries come back.
They're the berries. So berries and also green leafy vegetables, but the blueberries is one thing that stands out in the Mind Diet. And so yes, Dr. Mike, I think it was a live that you did by yourself, and you go into most of the details.
I don't remember that
Diet.
I think I do remember that one. That was one I did by myself. Yes. Yeah.
You did that one by yourself. And yes, so the link right there is in the chat. And it's a way of, it's not, it's really not a diet, Dr. Mike. I want to make sure that's clear. It's an eating pattern. It's, you're still able to have, meat, but healthy, non-starchy vegetables, fruit, of course, blueberries, and some of the research with the Mind Diet is with Alzheimer's disease. That was one of the main studies with the Mind Diet. Just very impressive research with that eating pattern.
So there you go. So what we've learned, that the latest research about keeping your brain healthy as you get older involves those 4 components we just talked about. We want to do the things that prevent brain shrinkage. We want to do those things that improve communication between brain cells. We want to improve overall blood flow to the brain. And then lastly, we want to ease that chronic inflammation in the brain as well. So those 4 things, following strategies between diet, exercise, and supplementation, really can put together a nice regimen for you to keep your brain sharp as you get older. Dr. Crystal, I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
If you had to choose one lifestyle thing to do for a better brain, what is it? Go.
Learn a new language.
Good one. Good one. I love that. It was one of my favorites. Yeah. I was just going to say, learn something new. Learn how to change your car's oil. I don't know. Learn something new, but learn a new language is really powerful.
But one thing. So, and I learned this from Dr. Shanti Albani. She's our manager of clinical information. Her mouse, she moved it from her dominant hand, which is her right hand, to her left hand. So if you have an office job, if you're at the computer, switch that mouse over.
Great tip. Yeah, great tip.
That will help out as well.
You might be frustrated for a while, but you'll get better at it. Right. That's great. Dr. Crystal, thanks for joining me today. And thank you everyone who watched our live episode. Don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Please write your comments, questions. We have a great social team that will answer those questions for you. It was great having you today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.